Before we begin the session, I thought I'd take the occasion, Luang Por, in your presence right now. It's really very encouraging for all of us globally to be here with you in the virtual world. And on the occasion of 27th of April, of which it was your birthday, and many of us from afar has been dedicating metta to your well-being, to your and your good life and your long life. I thought that it would be very suitable on this occasion before we open this teaching, that as a global community, that we bow in respect to you, and we ask for your forgiveness, and that may you have a longer life, a healthy life, and that with that, all of us from around the world can continue to benefit from your teachings. I will request for Brother Shun Xiang, who will lead us in the asking of forgiveness. So imagine all of us bowing at your feet right now, Luang Por, in the Tisarena Hall. Okay, Brother Shun Xiang.
Good evening, Luang Por. Hope you're well.
Hi, Shusin.
Happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
So we'd now like to formally seek our forgiveness from you. May we invite everyone to Peace Be Nanjali. Let's pay our respects together. 3 bows. Bow. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Please bow down together. Mahathire pamatena tawaratayena katang sabang aparadang kamatuno bante. Mahathire pamadena tawaratayena katang sabang aparadang kamatuno bante. Mahathire pamadena tawaratayena katang sabang aparadang kamatuno bante.
Aham kamami tumhe hipime kamitapang.
Amama bante.
Bhavatu sabha mangalang rakantu sabha devata sabha buddha sabha dhamma sabha sankha nubhavena sadasati bhavantu te.
Sadhu. 3 bows together. Bow.
The bowing tradition. Very kind. Thank you. Thank you. I need all the good wishes I can get. So, shall we do some meditation, Bita? You up for that? Okay.
Yes, right. Yes, Luang Por.
Half an hour. So please take a posture for meditation that's comfortable. awaken to the way things are by listening. Just listen. Let sound come to you. So choiceless listening, all sounds are okay. And notice the silence of awareness. Feel your hands. Feel the tactile sensations in your hands. Let that become conscious. So welcome whatever sensations are there. Notice the silence of awareness. Be that silent awareness. Listen to sound. Feel your hands. Notice the experience of sound. It's different to hands, but the awareness doesn't change. Be that awareness. And just sitting as witness, just notice the way things are in the room you're meditating. Feel the temperature. Notice the silence of awareness. Be that awareness. So as thoughts come and go, which they will, it's natural. Be disinterested in thought. Practice disinterest. Don't try to get rid of. Don't get interested. Don't go there. Practice disinterest. Be the silent awareness. Disinterest in planning. Disinterest in the future. Disinterest in memory. Disinterest in doubt. Be the silent awareness. disinterest in looking for something. Disinterest in resisting. Be the silent awareness. Disinterest in worry. Disinterest in thought. Disinterest in doing something else. Be the silent awareness. Listening to the way things are. Knowing the way things are. Disinterest in judgment. Disinterest in analysis. Be the silent knowing of the way things are. Disinterest in doing something. Disinterest in finding something. Disinterest in getting rid of something. Be the silent witness of the way things are. Disinterest in talking to yourself. Listen to sound. Notice the silence of awareness. Feel your hands. Notice the silence of awareness. Be that silent awareness. Hello.
Thank you, Luang Por. We would now like to request Luang Por for a Dhamma talk. Brahmacaloka Dipati Sampati Katanjaliya Devara Yachata Santi Dasana Parajata Jatika Dese tu Dhamma Anugampi Mampaja.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Hello again. A bit of news from Tisarana, maybe. The magnolia is in bloom. It's the first flowering tree. And there's some warmth in the sun. The snow's all melted. Lots of songbirds have arrived. And very exciting, we have a pair of swans on the big pond. And that they just arrived yesterday, we think, probably. So maybe they'll be nesting. We have herons and American bitterns and ducks and grebes and all kinds of beautiful critters. So the air is filled with the sound of songbirds and other birds. And you know, the winter here is very, very quiet because most of the birds head south. And then the frogs are just about to start, I think. Have we started yet? They did, huh? You're out there. So the frogs are starting, so it's alive springtime. And our project is going very well. Dharma Hall, it's probably still 10, 12 months away from occupancy, but it's a labor of love. The craftsmen are great. And so we're all very pleased with that. And now after winter retreat and the first year where COVID isn't restricting us, we have lots of applications for guests and visitors, but we don't have enough space. So we don't know how we're going to play that, but eventually we'll build proper guest accommodations, but one thing at a time. So that's us. We're doing well. We just had a reading from Ajahn Chah, which I often talk about this book, the Stillness Flowing. It's one of the great pieces of Buddhist literature, I think, in contemporary society, written by Ajahn Jayasaro. And so I'll just start with that. This is Ajahn Jayasaro. Transcending the world required an understanding of what the world truly was, and what it meant to be born into the world. This is Luang Por. Wherever there is a cause, there will be a result. It is the way of the world. There are causes and results. There is birth and there is death. There is pleasure and there is pain. There is love and there is hate. The existence of all these things is called the world. Ajahn Jayasaro, identification with any of these phenomena was the profound meaning of birth. Birth formed the cause for a proliferation of conditions, and then inevitably death. Birth and death are inseparable, he said. Every single person who dies has experienced birth. To determine the middle way of practice, it was necessary to bear the end in mind. Luang Por. The highest teaching of the Buddha is to put things down. Take hold of them and then put them down. Pick them up to see what they are, and when you know, then lay them down again. In the end, that's the way it has to be with everything. You have to put it all down. When you truly know all the things in your mind, then you put them down in a matter of course. If you don't, and it's this is mine, that is mine, then you've got it wrong. If you really understand something, then you put it down. The teachings of the Buddha mean an end without remainder. Whatever there is must be brought to a conclusion, to a complete end. The term kinasavo means one who has come to an end of outflows. Know the good as good, and then put it down. Know evil as evil, and then put it down. Eventually, the teachings lead to an ending. Knowing the cause, you lay down the cause. Knowing the effect, you lay down the effect. So having done that, then where do you dwell? Beyond cause and effect, beyond birth and death. You abide there, where things are concluded, where they have come to an end. There is nothing there. The mind is at peace in the absence of cause and effect, birth and death, pleasure and pain. In that peace, there is no cause and effect, because the mind has gone beyond them. It is our ultimate aim in practice. The Buddha taught just this. What remains is for us to travel to that point. The Buddha has provided a boat and oars and left them for us to make use of. If we start to row, then the boat will move. If we don't, then the boat will remain motionless. The Buddha is the one who tells us what's what. He cannot do the practice for us. That is our responsibility. In Theravada Buddhism, Theravada means the way of the elders, the way of the teachers. And although we make the suttas very important, sometimes I think we can over-exaggerate the words that we think are the definitions of the suttas, and we become Suttavadins rather than Theravadins, where everything is referenced to a word, an interpretation of a word. And then culturally, we can carry that through generation upon generation, a word. And then we think we know what it means because we've heard that word. Well, I know what that means. We don't really. We just know that that's what our tradition says. And that's what I should believe. And that's right. And others are wrong. Those are just opinions, aren't they? And that's the cultural trap of any established system of religious practice. But you don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. Texts are important. But Theravada is the way of the elders, the way of teachers. And for myself, I found without Ajahn Chah, Ajahn Sumedho, and other teachers that have used the basic formulations of Four Noble Truths to be characteristics and so on to be invaluable. Because language is very relative and it's very hard to figure out sometimes. And language is cultural and language is in the context of time. And that's what I've reflecting on this is my 76th birthday, and just reflecting on the good fortune I had of good parents and good teachers and good friends, a good brother. The language that Ajahn Chah used, the language that Ajahn Sumedho used, it's contemporary language. It uses the idioms and anecdotes and cultural references that I can understand very, very easily. And so Theravada is that way of constantly reinterpreting the basic teachings of the Four Noble Truths in a way that's relevant to time and place, to this place and to this time. And I'm so incredibly grateful for that opportunity to be guided in that particular way. So when we, like as Theravadins, take that as an identity, and then we take those identities and simply argue about words and say this word means that, then of course we're just attached to language, and that can lead to a lot of conceit and arrogance. I came across a quote from Kafka's The Trial. It's only their stupidity that makes them so sure of themselves. It's quite a quote, isn't it? It's only their stupidity that makes them so sure of themselves. And we see that, don't we? We see people banging away with their views and opinions of this and that. And you look at them, you say, well, you're not very smart. There's something about you. So we're not, if we just get stuck in opinions and viewpoints about Theravada Buddhism, that would be Ditthupajana, attachment to views. And Ajahn Chah was adamant about that. Don't take any positions, because positions have cause and effect. So coming back to this reading, there's a kind of contradiction which I came across early on. The Buddha says there's something that's not causally linked, something that is not cause and effect. And so the way I've ingested that idea is through the famous allegory that the Bodhisattva, when he is protected by his king, the Bodhisattva Siddhartha sees old age, sickness, and death for the first time. And then he sees a sadhu searching for the deathless, the unconditioned. That story always struck me, and I often repeat it because, as I say oftentimes, it's that if that's the realization the Buddha has, there is the unconditioned, the uncreated, the unoriginal, unformed, then the rest of the teaching has to fall within that. It has to somehow address that or serve that. And so Ajahn Chah is saying that the peace is beyond cause and effect. And the kind of contradiction or paradox which I pondered early on was, well, how can I do something which is causally related to realize the uncaused? How can I do something in that way and get something called something uncaused? What is this peace? And so the ideas of letting go became very important, are very important, because letting go is not building up another cause and effect. It's getting out of the causal stream of thought and emotion and so on. And so this meditation, which I was using the word disinterest, and I've been kind of searching for another word, the word attachment and non-attachment, letting go. And that gets people a lot of hung up because they think they have to not be something or not have something, not do something. But being disinterested, I thought, well, that's a kind of neat way to consider our obsession with causality, with things, with objects. And that's the problem. We are constantly, our attention is taken up, mostly with thinking. This constant thinking, talking to ourselves, worrying about something, planning something, organizing something, fantasizing something. And of course, that preoccupation prevents noticing the peace of the mind, the uncaused peace of the mind, the background, which is always there. And yet, if we try to get rid of thought, thought's natural. Nothing wrong with thought. We have to think a lot, actually, to survive in the world, don't we? It's just the nature of our existence. We have to analyze, we have to judge, we have to make decisions. We can't just hang out and be disinterested. We have to be interested. And yet there's a spiritual dimension to our lives which gets kind of missed if that's the only thing we do. We're always absorbing into the events of the world or the passions of our lives or the difficulties of our family life. And so meditation, it seems to me, is coming to a different space, not the space of objects, not the situation of things, but the situation of that which is behind things. And so the model or the analogy I like to use, is foreground and background. And the idea of the background is that, like, there's a disinterest in the foreground, disinterest in thought, disinterest in worry. It might be the word nibida, I don't know, but disinterest is not rejecting, but it's also not getting caught up into. And this is the great challenge for contemplatives and meditators, is the thinking mind. Because as long as we're preoccupied with the thinking mind, then that preoccupation prevents the noticing, the availability to the peace. And the peace is always there. It's not something that you get through cause and effect. It's something you intelligently turn towards. So this interest, I think, comes from intelligence. You know, like if I really realize that the thinking mind can never take me to peace, it's impossible, because it's a causally conditioned thing. It comes and it goes. And I see that clearly in my mind. I see that. That to me is intelligence. And then where else do I go? Where do I go? If I'm interested in peace, if I'm interested in a spiritual dimension of my life, where can I go? Well, the only place I can go is to return to the silence of knowing. And this silence of knowing is like, I think in this meditation, hopefully, it's not very complicated. When I ask you just to listen, just in that moment where you actually do listen and not judge and not try to find a sound or get rid of a sound or be inattentive, you actually pay attention in the listening posture, then you notice the silence of awareness. Now, is that something you get or get rid of, or is that just something you notice because your attention isn't on an object? It's not listening to a particular sound, it's letting all sounds just be the way they are. And it's there, isn't it? It doesn't seem so far away. It's so very ordinary that we get bored with it. We get bored with peace. Peace isn't exciting. Peace is, it's boring compared to worry, compared to planning, compared to all the habits of our mind. And yet, if you try to get rid of worry, if you try to get rid of the habits, it won't work, because they're still interested in the habits. So this interest is not rejection, because rejection would still be, I'm interested in it. Trying to get rid of your thoughts, I'm still interested in the thoughts. Being caught up in my thoughts, I'm still interested in the thoughts. It's the middle way. Disinterest. Disinterest. It's an idea. Pick it up if it works, if not. But the thing about insight and intelligence and the path is you really have to, and I was saying, we just did a lovely retreat near Parry Sound, which is 5 hours northwest from here by car. And a good friend from Toronto organized the retreat, very nice retreat. But I was just saying to folk that there is a tendency in Theravada to overstudy. One sutta, another sutta, another sutta, another sutta, another sutta, another sutta. And what happens, I think, is that can lead to confusion. There's more and more ideas that you pile on. Now, personally, something like disinterest, I think you could do that for a year. I mean, do you really need another idea to understand that deeply? I don't think so. I think actually you need to do the others, like put away all the ideas, take one idea and go deeply. And I think that is maybe one of the fallacies of academic study. Academics are brilliant people, and they do a brilliant job in presenting analyses and texts and translations, and we're grateful to them. But I think the question for the truly contemplative life is depth rather than volume and width and breadth. And depth to me seems taking an idea which somehow strikes you, it's just one, and really, really taking that and reflecting on it again and again and again and again and again for a long, long time, until you bed it in, that insight that you have, or that interest that you have in that particular way of observing life becomes so much a part of your intuition, so much a part of your reflective capacity. It becomes you. So you begin to see like the Buddha sees. Whereas intellectual knowledge is just ideas. They're not bad, they're not wrong. And so if we have the example of Luang Por he's been teaching Four Noble Truths for, 60 years? And we've heard his talks a few times, right? I've heard him a few times. And he just keeps deepening that practice for himself and for others, just keeps deepening it. There's some people have actually said to them, oh, that's just for beginners. Yeah, well, I don't know. I think the idea that a teaching is for beginners doesn't understand that you have to take things deeply. Remember, like a couple of years ago, I suggested some homework for everyone. I said, why don't you do resistance for a year? Vibhava Tanha in the Pali. Now, that word, Vibhava Tanha, desire to get rid of, I define as resistance. That's intellectually, okay, I got it. What's the next idea? But if you don't take that idea and really bed it into your practice, then it doesn't become powerful, and it doesn't lead you to powerful ways of letting go or disinterest in the whole phenomena of experience. So I would ask you, first of all, do you take teachings and imbibe them regularly? Like a good cup of coffee or whatever. And it is someone displaying their coffee mug from Perth. And it is like that. You take it in, but not just, oh, I read that already, but you write it down. So like this word, disinterested, I really like this word. So I'll probably play around with it and you have to hear about it for the next year. Sorry. But it'll be something that, oh yeah, I like that. That's an interesting one. I'll play with that. Or I've used the word like availability, like for a few years, availability, which always brings me to presence. So when you do that, what happens is that your attention on the way things are is now being informed by some deep principle of Dhamma. Some principle of Dhamma that you feel somewhat interested in or inspired by. And then each time you remember that, or you read the same thing again, you remind yourself, you begin to see that part of the teaching which the Buddha is asking us to look at. And as you see that, you see like the Buddha sees. You see Dhamma, you see the way things are. And that, of course, is the path to freedom, the path of peace. But if the ideas are just left as ideas and Buddhist ideas that you like and so on, you might get a good mark in your high school exams, as some of my friends have. I have lots of Sri Lankan friends, and many of them have told me that they got A's in their, what do you call those levels of school? We have grade 13. You have something, A levels. What are they, A levels? A levels, okay. They got A's in their A levels or hundreds or whatever, because they're all brilliant people, but they didn't know Dhamma. They had ideas. I mean, they knew Dhamma, right? But then they started to practice and the whole thing became deeper. So we don't want to just leave our intellect at the level of high school. We want our intellect to be really insightful rather than just intellectual. I think that's the real idea around intelligence, that it understands the way things are, obviously. So if you know how to make a good birthday cake, which I just had about 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 birthday cakes, there's an intelligence in that, making a cake. I mean, how do they do it? I don't know. Layers and layers of lovely, fluffy stuff. That's intelligence. It's the intelligence of things, the intelligence of flour and sugar and all the other, and more sugar that goes into a cake. Well, in the same way, our minds our minds are parts of nature, and our intelligence, when applied to the mind, is a natural thing to do. But what's really different, of course, is that we're not just perfecting our personality. We're not perfecting the mind or the qualities of mind. We're becoming disinterested even in that, and beginning to realize that which is beyond perfection, the silence of the mind. So in Theravada Buddhism, we obviously need a good grounding of good living, of honest living, of caring for each other and caring for the planet and our water and our trees and being honest. And this is very, very important. If we don't have that, we have nothing. And then having a sense of kalyana mitta and friendships. This is very, very important. But then it's not just that, because no social structure, no ecological structure, no mental structure is really where it's at. It's what's behind it. It's the peace of the mind that's behind it. So what if we were to do that? Like if one were to just write down disinterested, well, your kids or your parents would say, oh, you're boring, you're so uninteresting, you're disinterested. That's not it. I mean, I'm interested in woodwork, I'm interested in weaving, I'm interested in people. Interest is fine, that's fine, but it's always limited. So you kind of challenge that tendency to always go out into objects. The mind going out is the cause. The result of the mind going out is suffering. The mind knowing the mind. What is the mind knowing the mind? The mind knowing the mind is the path. The result of the mind knowing the mind is the end of suffering. When you find yourself worrying about whatever, and you can't do anything about it, and you've done your worrying, and you say to yourself, don't go out, come home. You touch the peace of the mind. Thought is like this, disinterest. You keep returning to the background, to the peace of the mind. This takes a lot of training. This takes a lot of remembering. It doesn't take it's not like astrophysics. It's not that kind of super intellectual analysis, but it is intelligent in the sense of you understand, well, in objects, they're limited. I need them, I need to live in them, but in the objectless, in the peace of the mind. So turning the mind to that is renunciation. Renunciation is not dismissing the world. You can enjoy the world, I do. I love color and I love looking for new birds, and I don't like the black flies very much, but that's another story. But that's not what we're saying. We're not saying that there's anything bad, anything wrong, or anything evil about the world. It's just that there's these two possibilities. There's a possibility of worldly happiness, and that's very tentative. That's very tentative. Who did I hear about? Someone who I know who went through who was driving, and someone went through a stop sign, sideswiped them, person's dead, friend is crippled, broken back, and that happens. And I don't want anything to happen, but worldly dhammas are very insecure. That's why we always sort of bring that up, not to make you all depressed and think the world is terrible, but to say, well, there is also this peace of the mind which is not dependent on the world, which is not dependent on sight, not dependent on sound, not dependent on taste, on emotions, on relationships. It's self-sufficient. It's peace. And the more we turn to that, what happens in meditation, as you reflect and realize, yeah, there is that possibility, there's tremendous happiness that comes from that, because you don't need to follow your desires. You can put cream in your coffee and buy a new pair of sneakers. Fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But you don't need that. You don't need desire to be happy. You realize that the happiness of peace and the fulfillment of peace is not a function of desire. You don't get there with desire, because desire is always, in our sense, Dhamma, is out into the objective world. Now we're letting go. And so the disinterest in bhavatanha, vibhavatanha, kamatanha, the disinterest in experience is not a dismissal. It's not there. That's not where peace lies. Peace lies in the background. And that's a tremendous relief and a tremendous happiness. And then because the one's kind of energies are no longer consumed by getting or getting rid of, one is available for helping and doing and all kinds of lovely things to serve. First and foremost, that I think that understanding of what does dispassion mean? What does disinterest mean? What does turning away mean? What does renunciation mean? Those are words that are quite common in spiritual practices. They have a profound meaning. Notice when I stop, notice the background. Notice the silence of awareness. Nothing to do, nothing to anticipate, just stop. So I'll stop there for your reflection and any questions.
Andamayam o vadagata sadhu karang kadamase sadhu 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 anumodhami.
Sadhu Luang Por. So now we're opening up the floors for questions and answers. If anyone has got any questions, please feel free to raise your digital raise hand button and we'll invite you to unmute, or you can type your question down on the chat box. Anyone has any comments, feedback, questions? Right, we have
Hi, Miri.
from Perth, Miri.
Greetings, Luang Por.
Hi, Miri.
Hi, I loved hearing your description of the songbirds and or the spring. And my question is I have been like doing a bit of meditation practice, and it's a strange thing that seems to be like fractured things happening. Like on the one hand, there is this background silence, which is wonderful. But on the other hand, it's as if there's also a gratitude for the things that I have. But that's also coming with a sense of precariousness. And that is creating a sense of panic as well. So it's as if becoming tuned into the impermanence of things. It's sinking in, but it's also making me very frightened. Like if this were to change, then everything could come crumbling down. I'm sort of keenly aware of just how the causes and conditions are so fragile. Like if anything happened to, say, my husband David, I would collapse in a puddle or something. And so should I expect, I suppose, I mean, is that normal when one becomes really aware of the impermanence to also feel a sense of panic? And is there a practical way that maybe I could cultivate the disinterest in a way that alleviates just the keen sense of suffering that comes with the percipience of the impermanence? It's like a two-edged sword.
Yeah, it's like you got your feet in two worlds.
Yeah.
Or like two canoes and you be split apart.
That's how it feels, and I don't know if I've gone off the wrong track.
No, I think that's wisdom. Because the worldly part is when you really become conscious of the worldly part, it's very, very fragile. Right, it is. And so being fully conscious of that, allowing it to be what it is, means that the fear begins to dissipate. If you allow it to be just as it is, you trust in awareness. If you don't trust in awareness and you have some other strategy of not having the fear, then of course you go back into the worldly dharmas and try to create a permanent structure, but you can't get away with that anymore because it's not true, right? So you're stuck with enlightenment. That's your only choice. And seriously, the kind of like as these existential fears come up, that's, to me, that's a kind of way wisdom works, that, wisdom is showing you something now. This world is dangerous. It's imperative that the refuge is in the silence of knowing, science awareness. So if you then, I would suggest, as you feel the fear, how can you have to be interested, and you have no choice, but not be obsessed by it, not make it a problem, not make it an issue, not make it a storyline, and say, wow, fear feels this way. So, and not even get too much into like body meditation or investigating fear. Sometimes I have done that in my own life, where I've over-investigated something. What does fear really, really feel like? Where is it? Which, but that's still kind of this overly fascination with it. But just to make conscious, and there's the awareness, there's the knowing. If you keep coming to that, then the fear, because it is a sankhara and it's not permanent, its energy will dissipate. It's an asava, the outflows, right? So the asava is coming up now because of your insight, because of you've been practicing in India very, very diligently now for the last 5 months, was it? Whatever. There with Gangaji, so Gangama, sorry. So I think it's a good sign. It's a good sign, but so it's kind of like Mara saying, "Oh, you think you got some silence, huh? Well, how about this one?" And well, no. I still trust in awareness, and then what happens, right? But if you start to fantasize, David's demise or your own demise, and of course you're going down a train of worldly suffering. So stay with the knowing. So the world is that way. It's a frightening place. It's a threatening place. It is. That's true. It's true. But I have refuge. I have refuge in the silence. Yeah. Does that? You're right. You're on the right path. So be confident.
Yeah, it's just because often it's not even that I'm lying in bed at night, proliferating about these things. I don't let that take hold, but it's like this background, it's on the edge, this existential vertigo, and it's connected with the fact that the days are going past so fast.
It's visceral.
It's visceral.
It's primal.
Yeah, that's how it feels. Yeah.
I'll just be totally innocent, nothing going on, and this kind of visceral fear will manifest, having nothing to do with anything. It won't be emotional. They won't have a storyline. I'm hale and hearty. I get a good medical exam, blah, blah, blah. And just like out of nowhere. And I think that's just the realm of the realm of the body and the realm of the emotions have these deep energies, which we don't have to analyze, but we know, well, that's not who I am. It's not my real home. And I maybe it's also a kind of a warning, say, don't get reborn in that realm of worldly dharmas. Don't go there. Come back home into the silence of the mind. And like Luang Por Liam's enlightenment statement, or those pieces in No Worries that I often read, and in that, he's going through incredible practices and one experience after another experience, and very profound. And at the end of each one of these sessions, he just says, I wondered what that was, but things were just the way they were, or things are just the way they are. And that clarity of awareness, really impressed me in that reading. It's just this way. And that's what Luang Por Sumedho was saying. It's just this way, no addition, no subtraction, that kind of thing. So fear is just this way. But there's also birthday cakes and things. So okay, Mira, thank you for a good question.
Thank you.
Is there a second question from anyone? No more questions, Luang Por?
Harmony, guided, please.
Yeah. Well.
Oh, here we go.
Okay. Ciao.
Ciao. Hi, Ciao. How are you? You in Ottawa? Oh, unmute yourself.
Okay. Thank you, Luang Por. I have a question. So after Dhamma talk or meditation, I feel lots of peace, but then I would like to sustain the peace. So is sustaining the peace also a desire that I need to let go?
Well,
Thank you.
desire is both wholesome and unwholesome. It's skillful and unskillful. So the word desire in English covers a real broad range of possibilities. So if I'm cold, I have the desire to put on a coat. That's a good desire, so don't catch cold and so on. So where desire is considered negative in Buddhism, it's called tanha, craving. And craving is always about sense experience or about sense of self. So being constantly preoccupied in sense experience is kama tanha, desire for experience. Bhava tanha is always the sense of becoming in the future and going somewhere. It's an ego kind of thing. And vibhava tanha is repression, suppression, and so on, also ego kind of thing. So those are considered the problem. Whereas the word chanda, we have another word, chanda, and that can be kusala chanda or akusala chanda or dhamma chanda. And the kusala chanda or dhamma chanda refers to good desire, wholesome desire. If we didn't have that, we wouldn't do anything, right? So be careful of the word desire. And so wholesome desire is a desire to return to that peace and understand that peace because it's intuitively correct. It's intuitively a good place that is healthy and wholesome. So then the question is, how can I remember that peace of mind in the midst of my busy life, right? Now, if you just try to get back to that peace of mind by getting rid of things, then that will be vibhava tanha. You'd be trying to get rid of something in order to get rid. So it's not about craving. It's about the intelligence of awakening. So as you live your life, are you retired yet? Or are you still doing computers? And you're almost retired. Anyway.
Almost retired, yes.
Almost retired. So you go to work and it's busy and confusing. Then you have to constantly remember, confusion feels like this, busyness feels like this. You constantly come back to awareness. But it's not the same peace that you have in your home where you are protected, where your senses aren't being bombarded. So the sense experience is coarse. But sense experience can be known, coarse experience can be known from a place of peace. So you want to be careful not to make the mistake of thinking that environmental peace is the same as inner peace. And so what you do is you do exercises. You're in some situation and there's no real responsibility you have. Maybe you're waiting for something and it's noisy. Then you contemplate. A noise is like this. And then you see that the mind is peaceful with the noise. So it's not an environmental thing. Environmental peace is helpful. I love it. This place is very peaceful and it's conducive to inner calm. But external circumstantial peace is unreliable. So you start to kind of think, well, what is peace anyway? What is it really? Is it like an experience like I went down to the lake today and it's very calm and still and beautiful. It's very peaceful. But is that the peace we're talking about? Or is it the silence of awareness? And that's what you want to differentiate. And then in situations of complexity, how can you remember the silence of awareness in the midst of noise and emotions and complexity? Can't do it all the time. You get overwhelmed and all that, but you start to do that kind of training or remembering in the more complex situations of life. Then your desire for peace is coming from right understanding, right practice. It's not just coming from the desire to get rid of non-peace. Make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good. And then come and visit us here and go down to the lake and get both.
Yes, on Monday. On Monday, I got a ride from
Oh, great.
Nisanka.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, it'll be
Thank
good
you.
to see you.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, ciao. Thank you. Okay.
It has all been very clear, Luang Por.
What's that?
Today's teaching has been very clear. Either it's very clear or
Right. Okay.
all of us are confused.
Yeah, if you make it too intellectual, people bring a lot of questions in. But you just keep it simple and people don't know what to say.
So it leaves
Okay.
us all now to perhaps request Luang Por to lead us in the chanting of the Buddha's words on loving kindness.
Good idea. You're gonna put them up, yeah?
I'm going to put them up now.
This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties, and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety. May all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Any being in any state, let none through anger or ill will, even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding, by not holding to fixed views, pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Okay, everyone. Be well. See you next time.
Let us all now pay respects to Luang Por as we take leave. First bow. Second bow. Final bow. Have a good weekend, Luang Por.
Okay, you too. Ciao.
Bye.